bold, inspired solutions for America. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
I'm Pat Roberts, and I approve this message.
Trillions in new debt. Obamacare. Nearly 10 million Americans unemployed. Now Barack Obama says,
I'm not on the ballot this fall. But make no mistake, these policies are on the ballot. Every single one.
Obama's candidate for Senate in Kansas? Greg Orman. A vote for Greg Orman is a vote for the Obama agenda.
Make no mistake, these policies are on the ballot.
All right, that was the answer for Pat Roberts. Real Clear Politics now has the state of Kansas in a dead heat. Pat Roberts is the Republican. He's running against the independent Greg Orman. A lot of political trickery going on in that race. We're 18 days out of Election Day. I'm going to get back to our top story of the day, which is, of course, Ebola, and tell you more of the information that you need to know today that's coming out regarding that, including the president's horrific appointment of Ron Klain. But first, joining us is Pat Roberts, the senator from that state. How are you, sir?
I'm just fine, Sean.
All right, so a lot of dirty, kind of bizarre things have happened in this race this year. For example, wasn't there a Democratic candidate that Harry Reid asked to get out of the race?
Well, basically, both Harry Reid and Claire McCaskill, this is a sham. The Democrat won the primary, then 5 minutes before the deadline, he got out of the race. He even said that morning he was going to run. His ads went up. So there's some pretty strange things happening here. So the Democrat got out of the race, and my opponent, Greg Orman, who is a liberal Democrat, he says he's an independent, but he's a self-funder. So and he has the support of people like George Soros, Mayor Bloomberg, and all those folks, and he's got the endorsement of the AFL-CIO. These people don't endorse independents; they endorse liberal Democrats. But that's how he's running, and it was sort of an end run around the process.
Yeah, I read that Soros is pouring millions and millions, and Bloomberg is also pouring millions into Kansas, where they have elected Republicans. I don't think a Democrat's been elected in your state since, what, 1932?
1932.
Yeah. Now, early in the race, I noticed that he wouldn't take any positions as to even on the Keystone Pipeline or who he was going to caucus with. Now, since then, in the last couple of weeks, he's been pressed a little bit harder. What have you been able to get out of him in terms of the so-called independence? He will caucus with Harry Reid, correct?
Well, that's what I believe. After all, he gave a lot of money to national Democrats. He gave money to Hillary Clinton, so you know where he's headed in that direction. But to his friend Barack Obama, who he voted for and supported, and yes, Harry Reid. So I think without question that he will caucus with Harry Reid. He says he won't. He says he's not going to caucus with anybody. So that shows you that this is not a high school sophomore thing, but, that's what he said.
Well, it's interesting because you have...
Just go down the line, Sean. He's pro-abortion. I'm not. He's pro-amnesty. I'm not. He's pro-Obamacare. I want to repeal it. And then he is against the Keystone Pipeline. He wants to study it. He's against the first and second. Well, he wants to.
It's been studied for 10 years. How many more years you got to? How many more years you got to study the Keystone Pipeline, for crying out loud?
Well, we've had 5 studies, and he wants to study it more. He voted for Obama. He ran as a Democrat against me in 2008. And he gave all that money to the National Democrats. And then get this: when the Wall Street Journal reported that the president may consider sending terrorists to the United States, and more especially back up to Fort Leavenworth, I stopped him in 2009. And I said again that after the Wall Street Journal reported that, I will shut down the Senate if I have to. I'll be like Ted Cruz. I'll shut it down. And then after I said that, he mocked me. His campaign mocked me, said it wasn't serious.
Well, you were actually one of the few people, and I got to give you credit for this, when Ted Cruz was standing up alone in that long filibuster, you were one of the senators that went down to the Senate floor and stood with him.
Oh, I thought he needed a senior Marine down there to protect himself, and but he did fine. I was trying to say to people in ever since that he was not trying to shut down the government. He was trying to indicate what a terrible bill this is, and we have seen that with increased premiums, people losing their insurance, doctor-patient relationship endangered. All of the things that we had predicted have now come true. So I think that did us a favor.
What are your thoughts on the president's appointment of Ron Klain to be the Ebola czar? The guy has zero medical experience, health experience, public health experience, emergency management experience. But, you know, we have world-renowned doctors we could have appointed, retired generals we could have appointed, world-class managers we could have appointed, and he appoints a political hack. What do you make of that?
I think he's two steps behind and asleep at the wheel with virtually every crisis. I don't care if it's Benghazi, whether it's ISIS, whether it's IRS investigations. He does the Heisman every time, and he's done it this time. I know this guy. He worked for Biden. He was chief of staff for him, and he worked for Al Gore. I think he's a lobbyist now. His credentials for being the Ebola czar are absolutely zero. And we have to do now what we know we're going to have to do down the road, and I don't know why we go ahead and do that. I want to thank you for your leadership on that. Basically, quarantine West Africa, stop the airplane flights. We can send our best and brightest over there. The World Health Organization now says if we don't do something in 60 days, now it's 55, we'll be seeing 10,000 deaths a week. So we have to stop this, but at the epicenter. Do not let that spread to the United States. I'm very worried about our armed services personnel being sent over there. I just don't think that they could have the proper training to do that. I have talked to them at Fort Riley, and I have talked to them with regard to the Marines, and I'm very concerned about them. 4 hours of training just doesn't get it. They'll do a good job, and they will certainly do the protocols right. But this is not the way to fight this.
You may be issuing these poor guys a death sentence. How do you prepare somebody with Ebola, especially after everything that has happened in Dallas, with 4 hours of training? I'm aghast that we're going to put our brave men and women in that position. That is disgraceful. It's embarrassing.
Well, I would just say the Marines can do about anything. I'm the senior Marine in the Congress. I have every confidence in the Marine Corps. But this is...
so do I, but this isn't their job.
Well, that's what I was going to point out, that basically, they do what they tell, what comes down, and they do it well. But with 4 hours training, with this kind of a deadly disease, we have seen people who are experts in this field who have tried to follow exactly what the protocol says, but it's on a voluntary basis, or has been, shouldn't be, but it has been. And you see what
Senator,
happens.
The World Health Organization points out that 277 doctors and nurses, these are people that are trained, lifelong doctors and nurses, have died in Africa treating Ebola this year alone. I mean, and we're giving these guys 4 hours training and sending them in there. We don't even know if they have the proper equipment. We saw them building tents where they're going to be working side by side with Liberians, and nobody had anything on. I mean, I am frightened for all of them, and we owe them more than that. Now, let me ask you this last question, because your race is really important. I really feel that this guy Greg Orman has been able to portray himself as this middle-of-the-road, independent type of guy, and it seems that the polls now are beginning to shift in your direction as he gets exposed. Is there anybody in the media there asking him direct questions about how he's going to vote on specific issues, or about the money that he's donated to all these Democrats and all his years as a Democrat, and how the Democratic candidate pulled out at the last minute, and the shenanigans that are going on here? Has anybody been able to vet him on this?
I wish he'd come out and join us on our tour and, ask him that. He's got trackers on me. I tell you what, he doesn't like to talk to the press, Sean. He runs from the press on these specific issues. But it's coming out. We're telling the story. We're telling people he's not an independent. He's a liberal Democrat by deed, by word, by vote. If he were in the Senate, and all the money that he gave to national Democrats, he is not an independent. He is a liberal Democrat, or he wouldn't be having dinner with the Soros family and everybody else up there. I mean, we're going to win this race. This race is so much more than me, and that's why we've had every Republican leader coming in. As I said, everybody from Jeb Bush to Sarah Palin to Ted to just a whole bunch of folks, and they know.
Every conservative has come in there for you, and I think Ted really appreciated that you stood up for him. I think, didn't I hear that Rand Paul might be going and that Marco's
Rand
going?
Paul's coming out. Tom Coburn has been here. We got we even got the endorsement from Laura Ingraham. I mean, you can't say any more than that. So every conservative is in on the race, and we are setting the record straight. And
I
we're
strongly
starting to move ahead in the polls.
I strongly urge the people of Kansas, do not be bamboozled by this liberal Democrat Greg Orman. And if you want any hope of changing this country, you've got to elect Pat Roberts and make sure that the Republicans get control of the Senate to stop the lawlessness of the president and this bad trajectory that we're on. So,
well, Sean, I appreciate it. We have Paul Ryan in here tonight. He's going to be giving a good speech on my behalf. The only other thing that I would say to you is that if I ever get on your set, I'll go along and I will catch that football.
All right, deal. You got a deal. All right, we're going to follow the race closely. 18 days to go to Election Day. Pat Roberts is running in Kansas, an important race, and it's now a virtual dead heat. He had been behind, and now people, as they learn more about this so-called independent and this dirty backroom dealing, they're getting on board.